So there is a new contender in the noise game market, especially for high gain and metal players, and the Fortin Zuul, I think, is going to have some competition. Now, that's a kind of controversial thing to say. The last time I even dared to talk about other metal noise gates other than the Zuul, it caught some ire. Now, just from the onset, I've used the Zuul for years. I still use it. It's a great noise gate. This isn't bashing the Zuul at all. This is just to talk about the Klirrton Schnauze and its features, what sets it apart, the things it does the same, and how it functions. Now, to start off, the purpose of a noise gate, for me, a noise gate is one of those essential pedals. It's one of those things that you don't even know it's there because you don't hear anything, and that's the point. But for high gain players, especially guys like me that boost into a high gain amp to get their metal tone, absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you're going to be dealing with a bunch of noise, which is going to sound terrible live. It's going to be annoying when you want to just play, and honestly is going to be really rough when you're recording, because then you're going to have to go in and edit out all that extra noise. And that's going to be a lot of work for you or your mixing engineer, and it's just not worth it. Now, there are some drawbacks to gates. I've been using them for years. There's a tone suck that people talk about, and that's usually like something like a Boss NS2 where you lose a lot of top end. There's also an artificial kind of thing where it changes the decay of your notes, it cuts things off too early, and it just changes the feel of how you're playing in the amp, and a lot of people really don't like that. And I think that's why I say the Zuul has been such a big hit, is it doesn't have any of those problems. It feels good to play. It doesn't really cut off notes too early. It doesn't change how everything feels. And it's overall a good gate. So then why the Klirrton Schnauze if the Zuul works? Well, they both have similar features, but then there's some stuff that the Klirrton does that the Zuul does not. And there's a couple of things that the Zuul does that the Klirrton doesn't do. So we're going to get into that. The Klirrton I really like because you can use the 4-cable method. What's the 4-cable method? Well, you can plug your direct clean signal in and then have that go out to any of your pedals, boosts, or anything into the front of the amplifier. And then you can send your effects loop through it. And that's important because noise gates are really meant to go after distortion source, or fuzz pedals, distortion pedals. For me and a lot of players, it's going to be in the effects loop, because that's going to be after the distortion of the preamp of the amplifier. You want to make sure that your gate is going after your distortion sources, just to really clean up the extra noise that comes from the compression of distortion. Makes sense. So why is the 4-cable method with the Klirrton important? Well, that's because that is a side chain. So what this does is it takes your clean signal and it allows the gate to hear your clean, unaffected guitar signal, and it allows it to really accurately know when you are and aren't playing, so that it allows the gate to gate accurately and not cut those notes off too early. And this is also important because it allows you to switch from a clean to high gain tone without having to either turn the noise gate on or off, or turn the threshold down, which is a big problem of using other noise gates. When you switch over to cleans, everything starts getting cut off and choppy and sounds terrible. Not a problem with this gate. Notice with the Klirrton too, it has another button and a knob. That's a boost. A lot of guys like a clean boost after the distortion source, after their preamp in their effects loop, because they want to be able to boost their volume without changing their overall tone for guitar solos. Makes sense, right? You need to be louder for a little bit for a lead passage, and then you just click it again and turn it off. This just has it built in the gate, because normally you would have a clean boost right after your gate anyway. This just has everything in one neat little package. Another 4-cable method you can do with this, and this is something I don't think I've ever seen in another noise gate, and it's pretty cool, is if you're running mostly a pedal rig, like something like their Grindstein preamp or any number of other preamp pedals or distortion pedals, you can run those in a crisscross pattern, so that it's essentially creating its own effects loop within the pedal. And then you're cleaning up the signal on that before it goes out to whatever amplifier source or recording source you're using, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Now, the features of the Zuul also is meant to be used after distortion sources, usually in the loop. It also has a side chain in the form of the key input, but the difference here is you need a splitter to go off to that key input. There's no output from the key input. Now, something the Zuul has that the Klirrton doesn't have, and I think is really cool, and I think all gates should do this, is it has an LED indicator of when the gate is open versus when it's closed. Green for open, orange for closed. And that just so you can visually see what the gate is doing, and that really helps to dial everything in too, so you can use your eyes and ears, and I think that that's a really good feature. It also has a threshold switch on the side, so if you're not using the key input and you're not, you know, being able to gate as accurately with it, or you're using just a crazy amount of high gain and you need the extra threshold, you have it there, and that's something the Schnauze doesn't have. Now, just comparing apples to apples with these two before I get to the sound examples and comparing the two, the thresholds aren't exactly the same. They're not set exactly the same, which makes sense. They're made by different companies. Now, the threshold is the level at which the gate starts to cut off noise, right? So anything under a certain amount of the threshold will then be quieted down. But anything over that doesn't trigger the gate. Makes sense, right? So these are set a bit differently. I noticed that the Zuul likes to be set around noon, maybe 11:30, and then the Schnauze feels much more comfortable from like noon to 12:30, like just slightly differently. I noticed that overall, the Schnauze has more gating, like it has more threshold. You can cut off way more noise when you jack it up all the way than you can with the Zuul. But I also noticed that the Zuul at lower levels does a better job of gating off noise than the Schnauze does. The Schnauze kind of wants to trigger once you get up around the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock range overall, for high gain anyway. So just some little differences there. Now, I wanted to go for a nice high gain source, so we're plugging in my Solar that has my Bareknuckle Warpig P90 in the bridge into the red channel of my EVH 5153 Stealth. And I'm also going to be boosting that with an overdrive just to get the extra noise, just so you can hear how much they're cleaning up and what they're doing. So let's take a look. So yeah, as you can hear, they're both doing as advertised, getting rid of the excess noise, and they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. There's a lot of excess noise going on, a lot of gain, a lot of volume, and they're both handling it fantastic. I would be happy with either one of these. The feature set for either one of them could fit an array of players. I just think the Klirrton offers some cool stuff that I haven't really seen on the market before. It might be something you want to give a try. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stay metal.